My name is Marco Kelly, and welcome to Motivational Moments. Today I want to share with you something I call the process of transition. It's a process we all go through when changing a habit or behavior. Something that we all go through even though we may not know it. And the challenges of not knowing about the process can hurt you in your success in going through the process. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But it's a 5-step process, and I'll break it down. First step is catching yourself after you've done the act. Second step, catching yourself in the middle of doing the act. Third step, catching yourself before you do the act. Fifth step, catch yourself thinking about the act. And the fifth step is free from doing the act. And this can apply to a whole range of behaviors and habits. Pretty much anything that you're going to do to change, you will require this process. And I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a habit of interrupting people when they speak to me. And my goal is to get to a place where I am actively listening and engaged, fully engaged in what my counterpart is telling me. In order to get to that point, I have to go through the process of transition. So the first step may be I interrupt them as they're talking to me. And in my head I'm going, darn it, I did it again. And I may stay on that step for a little while. But eventually I'll get to the next step. And the next step is catching myself in the middle. So I might be in the process of interrupting somebody, and then I catch myself and I go, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, please continue. The third step is catching myself before I interrupt. So I can almost feel like I get that I'm about to say something and I catch myself. The fourth step is thinking about something that I want to say. Now, some people may say, well, that's not that bad. But it's still not where I want to be. It's still not the goal of being fully engaged and actively listening to what my counterpart is telling me. So I want to get to that next step. So I continue to push myself to get there. And eventually I get to that point where I am now free of interrupting. And I'm at a point where I'm unconsciously, naturally, completely engaged and actively listening to what my counterpart is saying. That's the whole process. So I've reprogrammed myself from an unconscious interruption to an unconscious engagement. And that's the beautiful thing. Now the process of transition is interesting. Let me give you another example for a process of transition. If you ever have to change the password on your laptop or on your BlackBerry or iPhone and so on, whenever you have to change the password, what happens for the first little while? You automatically enter in the old password. Because you enter in the old password, you don't get into the phone or laptop. You don't get into it. So what happens is, that is what I call an efficient system of correction. And that efficient system of correction forces you to realize that you made that error and that you have to then re-enter the correct password in order to get into your device. That's an efficient system of correction. Without an efficient system of correction, you won't change the behavior. So when it comes to something like in the example I gave about interrupting, if I am not efficient in being aware and catching myself and being on the lookout almost, and I can, again, it's something you have to really focus on. You have to really want to do this. If you don't really want to do it, you're not going to be worrying about catching yourself, and if you're not worrying about catching yourself, you're not going to make the change happen. But if you really want the behavior to happen, you have to give yourself the time. Now, interestingly enough, people get stuck on step 1 and then they give up. And sometimes they're not stuck on step 1 very long, but their expectation is that they should be able to get it right away. And that's not realistic. The realistic element is it may take you a while, and depending on how ingrained that original behavior is, it may take you a long time to get there. But I guarantee you, if you stick with the process, you will get to the end and change that behavior completely. But what happens is somebody goes, let's use the interruption scenario I used, which is, so they go, then they interrupt and go, damn, I did it again. And then they interrupt and go, damn, I did it again. Then they interrupt and go, damn, I did it again. And then they go, you know what, I can't do this, forget it. But if they give themselves the time to get to the next step, they would get there. And they would catch themselves in the middle. And then eventually they'd catch themselves before, and then they'd catch themselves thinking, and eventually they'd be free from that act. I guarantee you. Now that you are aware of the process of transition and you know the steps that you have to take in order to change a habit or behavior, I guarantee you, you will have far more success in changing habits and behavior as long as you're committed to making that change. Thanks. We'll see you next time.